Hi, my name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO and founder of Third Stage Consulting Group, which is an independent, technology agnostic ERP consulting firm that helps clients through their digital transformation journeys. And wanted to chat today about what exactly is the third stage of digital transformation in ERP. When I started Third Stage, there was a definite meaning behind the company name, one of which is a rocket analogy about rockets getting into space, and there's typically multi-stage boosters that help those rockets get to their final height and speed. And the third stage is typically the final stage. So you've got the first two stages that get you up to a certain height, and then the third booster, the third stage, kind of launches from those first two boosters to reach that final stage. So that's kind of the imagery or the analogy that we try to create with the name Third Stage Consulting. And coincidentally or not coincidentally, it's also the third album by a rock band called Boston. And for those of you that know me, I don't do much without referring it somehow back to rock and roll. So there is a rock and roll reference in there as well. But just to talk about the third stage in a little bit more detail in terms of what that means and how it applies to your digital transformation or your ERP project, what we find is that most ERP projects and digital transformations fail in one of the first two phases of a project. The first stage is typically the stage where you've selected your software, you selected your partners, you start your implementation, but you really never get it off the ground, and there's a lot of turmoil along the way. So you would consider these the more drastic, extreme failures. Quite frankly, not many companies fall this short of the goal line, but some of them do. This is typically where we as an organization get engaged to be an expert witness in these engagements, or to do a project recovery, project cleanup, to come pick up the pieces and put together a strategy to get out of the gutter and get the project back on track. And we estimate about 10% of projects in the marketplace, or maybe a little bit less, fall into this extreme failure point. Now, where most companies get stuck, though, is in that second stage. So they get further along than the first stage of digital transformation, but they don't quite get to that third stage. That second stage being that they complete the base implementation, but only partial scope. So they've left a lot of functionality and potential improvements on the table. They probably didn't implement on time or on budget, limited benefits realization or return on investment, and probably some type of operational disruption occurred along the way as well. So that's where about 80% of digital transformation projects struggle, is they get stuck in that second stage where it's sort of a moderate success or a moderate failure, depending on how you look at it. And the third stage is really kind of that utopia state or that ideal state that most organizations fail to get to, but a select few do. We estimate about 10% of organizations ever reach that third stage. And what that means is, in short, it's really just achieving the vision you had from the start of the digital transformation in terms of implementing the technology as you expected, on time, on budget, achieving the ROI you expected, and also becoming self-sufficient and realizing a state of continuous improvement too. So those are some of the things that we see in those third stage successes. And again, it's difficult to get to. A lot of organizations don't know how to get there, but it's not rocket science, to continue with the rocket launch analogy. It's not rocket science in terms of what those third stage companies do differently. And that's something we'll talk about here in just a second. So the whole idea here is, how do we not get stuck by gravity or bogged down by gravity? How do we not make the same mistakes that most other organizations make? And how can we make smart, strategic, and tactical decisions to help us get to that third stage and be successful in our transformations? So there's really four ways to reach the third stage of digital transformation. And this is at a summary level. Within each of these four buckets, there's a lot of different subcategories and tactics and strategies that are to be used. But the first is to have a solid digital strategy, an effective digital strategy that isn't a one-size-fits-all strategy, and it's one that's aligned with who you are as an organization culturally and strategically and operationally, and who you're trying to become as an organization in the future. The second thing is implementation readiness. This is a really important point that a lot of organizations gloss over, is they skip from their digital strategy and their software selection straight into implementation without having that implementation readiness phase, where basically they're getting their ducks in a row, mobilizing their team, defining process improvements they want to have, putting together the organizational change strategy, and really making sure that when the system integrator or the functional and technical consultants show up on site, that you're making the best use of their time and that you're not spinning your wheels trying to make decisions and slowing the project down while the meter is running on your small army of system integrator consultants that are billing by the hour, and they're going to be billing whether you've made a decision or not. They're still there billing their time. So part of the reason why companies get so far off track with their budgets and their timeframes is because they don't spend time to handle and address that implementation readiness phase. The third way to reach that third stage is to make sure you have solid implementation project quality assurance and risk mitigation. So system integrators are pretty good at what they do typically. They're good at the functional and technical configuration and design and testing of the software, but they aren't good at identifying more global macro operational risks and risks to the project as it relates to people and processes. So a solid implementation project quality assurance framework will help ensure that you've identified and mitigated those risks along the way, and that you identify and mitigate those risks before it becomes too late and before it becomes too costly. And then finally, and arguably most importantly, I personally think this is the most important, is to have an effective organizational change management strategy. This is probably the biggest unknown that most of the industry just doesn't understand very well, despite all the failures and difficulties that digital transformations have had over the last 20 years or so. Most organizations still don't really understand organizational change management, what it means, and how to affect that change. So managing that piece well is very important, and I could spend a whole hour or 2 hours just talking about organizational change management, but I'll leave it at that and say that that's arguably the most important part of ensuring that you reach the third stage of digital transformation success. And by the way, and not coincidentally, these are the four services that we at Third Stage focus on as an organization. These are the four things that we provide to our clients in helping them through their digital transformations. So if you have questions about this or you'd like to chat further about Third Stage, what the third stage of digital transformation means, how it applies to your organization, feel free to reach out to me. You can call me on my cell phone, which is listed here, my email address or website. You can also follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or YouTube. So hope this is helpful. Hope you all have a great day and hope to chat with you soon. Take care.